Hello everyone, I am Tiberius Dawnbringer. Welcome back to my channel once again. Today I plan on going over smudging materials and the process of smudging and such. There's quite a bit more information to it than even I knew, and I spent a while doing research to get these kinds of notes here for you people. And let's just dive right into it, shall we? Okay, so most people who know anything about smudging, let's begin with what is smudging? Smudging is simply the act of taking something like white sage, and you light it up until it starts to smoke, and you don't want it to be on fire, obviously, but you get it to where it's just smoking real good, and then you're going around like an environment, like a room or a space, or an entire house. If you're, say, like you're starting a new business, or even if you have an existing business inside of a building and you just want to cleanse up the energy some, you would just go about smudging the place. You can smudge yourself, you can smudge objects. Actually, that's a big part of what I do with smudging with my stones and crystals and tools, is especially after a Reiki session, I will, if it was a dense, heavy session, energetically, what I mean by that, and I will take the materials that I feel like absorbed a lot of that energy or are still holding on to it, and I will smudge them when I get home, and then place them on a selenite log or something of that nature. So what I have here is just the usual tools that I use. I have this shell that I've had it for a couple of years. It's forget what it's called. I can't remember if it's like a lion something shell or what, but this is one of the bigger ones I've been able to find out in the marketplace and stuff like that. There are smaller ones than this. I've seen various sizes. There's also different kinds of shells. Some you'll find little packages that have, instead of having a whole piece of sage like this, it would have pieces a few pinches full of just leaves taken off of a sage smudge piece itself, and then inside of that same package will be a small shell that's I don't know, a little bit bigger than that, but it's not that big. It's like a tenth the size of this, and that's really just meant to use 2, maybe 3 times. You'll just take the little bits of leaflets or whatever and put them in a tiny shell and start a little fire and just walk around and do that. But most of the time you'll have a big shell like this, and this is, I don't want to say it's the generic, but it's pretty much the most basic of smudges, is white sage. Most of it that's available in America comes from California, but there's also other places, I want to say Peru and maybe Brazil and the Amazon, other countries that grow a lot more of this than we do, and it gets imported. But either way, this is the most frequent one you'll run across. If there's anywhere that has sage or smudging materials, this will be in abundance at those places. I also have Palo Santo, or which is referred to as holy wood, and this is the other kind I use. The smell on it, to me, is it's fragranty. It has a kind of a flowery scent to it. I used to never use this, and that was for personal reasons. 4 or 5 years ago, when I first started getting into all this and started learning about smudging, I only knew about these two, white sage and the Palo Santo. And the white sage, I love the smell of white sage when I'm smudging. the smell of this, like as soon as I got a whiff of it, I get this sharp pain in my forehead, and I didn't know why. I thought that maybe I was allergic to it or whatnot, but it apparently had something to do with some deep level work I had to do. And my mentor back then helped me work through that. Now I don't mind it at all. It doesn't bother me at all. I feel no discomfort from it. I don't mind the smell anymore. In fact, I actually kind of enjoy it. And I'll use it from time to time. It really depends on the situation. Like if I was to actually go about at the end of a Reiki session, if I felt compelled to do so, I would light this up because it doesn't put off as much smoke as, you know, this would. So I just light it up a little bit and I'll just kind of wave it over top of the client real quick, and then it's easy to put out. You just dab and it's done. Whereas white sage, if I was to do that, especially in an enclosed space that I usually do my work in, this would smoke out the room probably, and it could potentially irritate the client because there's so much smoke. I don't want to do that because I'm trying to give them a relaxed environment and experience. So yeah, if I was to do that, I would use Palo Santo because it burns less, the smell's nice, and it doesn't like ruin the state of being relaxed. As well, I don't want to say ruin, but could potentially disturb it. It doesn't do that. Now, people have asked me, like, what's the difference? Like, why would you choose one over the other? Or what's the difference between the two? Well, to be honest, not just these, but the other smudging material that I'm going to go through in this video today, they all have one thing in common. They are used to cleanse dense, maybe even some people would refer to as negative energy from a space or person or object or so forth. And it's meant to just pretty much clear out the space of anything you don't really want. Help change up the energy in a room or whatnot. And for the most part, that's what these two do, is that. Now, so with white sage, for example, when you smudge a room with white sage, you're not only cleaning out or cleansing out all the negative energy, you're cleansing out all the energy in the room. So you're pretty much it's just the slate is wiped clean in a room. And now you have what would be referred to as like a void of, or a space or void of energy at all. There's no energy there. So, not to make it sound like it's a scary thing, it's not at all. Simply what that means is now you can just put into that space whatever kind of energy you want, or you can set the intention you want in that space from that point on. So after you get done smudging with white sage and you have that open energy, just put forth the kind of energy you want to have in that space. Set forth any kind of intentions you want that space to have. Like, whenever I come in here, you know, I feel vibrant and more upbeat. When I come in here, my stress washes away and I feel relief. When I come in here, like if it's my workspace, I would want to set the intention that, you know, when I come in here, I am here to heal. My healing is abundant. Something of that nature. You kind of get the idea. Now with Palo Santo, it does pretty much the exact same thing as white sage, but it won't actually leave that voided space where there's a lack of any kind of energy or intention. It just cleanses out any dense energy that you don't want in your space. That's all this does. So, to me it's not that big of a deal. It's one less step, I suppose. You know, if you don't want to like set any special intentions, if you just want to clear the space, then go with Palo Santo. Pretty easy. But if you want to cleanse the space and you want to like reset it to something else, then go with white sage. No real big deal there. So it's pretty simple. I'm not actually going to light any of this up or anything because, you know, there's no need to. But you would just take like a lighter or something, you know, and you'd light it up and get it to where it's billowing out smoke. Some people don't like a lot of smoke. I prefer there to be a lot of smoke. That makes me feel like it's really working. But, excuse me. So once you get the smoke, you just, I'll just use this room for example. You would pretty much just walk the outer circumference of the room a few times as best as you can. If you're going through like an entire house and you're trying to smudge the whole house, which is not uncommon at all, especially if you're moving into a new place or a place that has a history of not so good things happening there, then you definitely would want to smudge the whole house. You would go from room to room, and I say to go along the outer perimeter of each room just so you cover as much of the space as you can. If you're just walking through like the center of the room to the next room to the next room, you're only really getting about half of the effects of it. So you would want to go the entire outer perimeter of each room. Some people would do it. I used to do it like 3 times because 3, 6, and 9 are magical numbers, so I would go around 3 times each room. But nowadays, now that I can gauge the kind of energy that's in each space more proficiently, I will just go through a space until I feel like it's met its criteria or whatever you want to call it. But you would go through each room of the house. If it's a multi-story house, it's really up to you. You could either start at the top floor and work your way down, or you could start at the bottom floor and work your way up. You know, just to clear all the space in a steady, progressive way. And I would carry the shell with me because, you know, it's a placeholder for it if you need to like open doors and stuff. And when you're done, then you simply just kind of put it out like you're putting out a cigarette or something else. Who knows? Or if you're comfortable with it, you can just let it burn. You can just place it on like a coffee table and let it smudge, because most of the time it will just burn for a little bit and then burn itself out. I've only had one occasion where I lit some white sage and left it there thinking it would be fine, and then I come back like 10 or 20 minutes later and the room is just full of smoke and I have to open windows and stuff. That's very rare that will actually happen. So, but that's it for those two. Now I'm going to go into the more varied versions of smudging material. So the first one I'm going to go over is called Besanta. Alright. I've worked with Besanta not too often. In fact, most of the stuff I'm going to show you I haven't used very often, but except for maybe Mugwort, which we'll get to. It's like at the end of the list. Anyways, so this is Besanta. It looks more like a bunch of leaves put together and stuff, whereas white sage looks just like it's just a plant that got snapped off the stem. But this is more of like leafy appearance. It is a divine herb for, well, aside from cleansing, like I said before, everything I'm going to go over in this list, this video, they are all used for cleansing purposes. If you don't feel like using sage or Palo Santo, or you don't like the smell it, but you like the smell of this, then just use this to smudge a space. They all cleanse and protect your space and your energy and all of that. So that aside, other things that like Besanta is used for is enhancing beauty and charm. It's used in rituals to access beauty from within and to make you feel more desirable. Is also used, or is also burned to honor ancestors. Increased psychic powers is another property of it, sorry, I was picking something out of it. This is also, which I found this to be kind of interesting and unique. It's used in infant smudge bundles to bring health to young children. That is something I did not know until recently, and is also useful for treating chronic asthma. I'm not entirely sure how it's used in that sense, because I came across a couple things like you could smudge around yourself, and maybe breathing it in helps with the asthma. Another source I came across talked about actually making like a tea out of the Yerba Santa and drinking that, and that would help with the asthma. But that's Yerba Santa. Alright. And the next one I'm going to go over is called Red Sage, or it's also known as Dragon's Blood. Now this one I'm not going to take out of the package I got it in, because what this is essentially, it's just white sage that's smothered in dragon's blood resin. Alright, so when you touch this material, depending on how much it's smothered, it will actually come off. It'll stick to your fingers and such, and that's why I'm not taking it out, because I don't want to deal with that. I will only take it out when I intend on actually using it. But hopefully you can see it clearly through the plastic. It's just really, really red. And that's the dragon's blood resin that's making it that red. Dragon's blood is a plant that comes from various parts. I want to say in the Middle East, mostly Jerusalem, I think, is one of the main places. But it has a lot of its own properties. This enhances the benefits of white sage and gives an extra boost to metaphysical protection or psychic protection, or the kind of protection that you intend on having when you smudge a space. On its own, it's used in rituals and as an incense. Like, you can just take the resin. I've known people to take resin and just make their own incense out of it. Dragon's blood is a popular smell or scent of flavor of incense, if that resonates with you. Modern magical practitioners use this to increase the potency of magical workings and rituals, and returning lost love was another one. Used to energize psychically, magically, and spiritually, enhance health, virility, and to cure impotency. Yeah, virility and impotency, mostly in men, but it's for women as well. And acts as a strong detox and blood cleaner. Like with Yerba Santa, working with chronic asthma, I've come across it where it kind of referred to like just smudging this would help detox and cleanse your blood. Another thing would be, I guess, to make like a tea or something out of it would also help. But I personally have not experienced taking this in like a topical sense or in any kind of ingestive way, so I can't say for sure. I won't say for sure. That's just the kind of research I came across when I was looking this stuff up. So that's pretty much it for red sage. Moving on to myrrh. Yes, I have frankincense and myrrh, and they come individually, and they have their own individual properties, although the majority of the time you will probably find them both together, because that's just a common combination that people come across, is frankincense and myrrh. Now, aside from the Christian, Catholic, religious aspects and background of these particular herbs, or whatever you want to call them, myrrh is, doesn't smell bad at all. Myrrh is aromatic and spiritually enlightening. Used to clear negative energies and purify, and healing rituals. Helps to maintain a sense of enlightenment, like if you're meditating and you decide to burn this, instead of like an incense, if you smudge your space, or like I mentioned before, where you just light it up and then leave it in the shell or dish or whatever you put it in and just let it smoke for a while as you're meditating. When you come out of that meditation, you would maintain longer the sense of enlightenment if that's what you're getting from your meditation practice. Dispels illusions that stand in the way of seeing the truth. It's also used frequently in sex magic rituals and practices. I cannot elaborate on that because I have not used this for that purpose myself, but it's there, and if that's something you're interested in, there's plenty of sources online that you can go to find instructions or things on how to do that, how to use this for that purpose. I mean, it's the internet, man. You can find just about anything on the internet. So that's it for myrrh, and going from myrrh to frankincense. All right. Give me a second here. I try to keep all these packaged up, partially for preservation, to keep it fresh and all that, but also mainly because a lot of these look very similar to me, and they're labeled in their packages, so it helps me differentiate them. Like white sage, I know what white sage looks like. Palo Santo, I can identify Palo Santo. Yerba Santa, I could do that with Yerba Santa. It's unique. But like this, to me, if I put this and myrrh, this is frankincense. If I put frankincense and myrrh side by side, I honestly probably wouldn't be able to tell you the difference, because they look very similar. Could also have something to do with why they get coupled quite often. So again, frankincense, aside from like the religious historical facts about it and such, this is used, this presents I like to smell that too. This presents a sweet, relaxing aroma that can aid in meditation and divine connection, similar to myrrh. It balances the mind, body, and spirit, and it helps to cleanse and realign your chakras. So if you're doing a meditation, or like I've done Reiki on myself, where I've just laid on my own table, and I even laid crystals out on myself, and I'll do work on myself while I'm laying there. And I've done plenty of healing work as well as exercises that focus on each individual chakra. I've done that before plenty of times. So if I wanted to focus on that one day, then I could use this, not just to smudge the space, but again to like leave it in a dish, let it kind of continue burning a little and all that, let the smoke kind of fill the room some more, and it would just aid and assist in the chakra work that I'm doing. If I was working on a client in my own space and wanted to focus on that, then I would do the same thing just for them. I'd smudge the space, and then I'd continue using it when I felt needed or felt called to continue lighting it, and so forth. But that's pretty much it for the frankincense, aside from cleansing the space and all that. So that's a good one. Definitely be using that later. Alright, so the next one I'm going to go over on our list is eucalyptus. Now, most of the time when I come across eucalyptus, it's usually paired with something else, mostly with white sage and such, but you can get eucalyptus by itself. This one is strictly just eucalyptus. You can tell it's got this this green leafy appearance. Eucalyptus has its own smell. I don't mind the smell. This one's not terribly strong, but I've been around some eucalyptus plants where the smell is so strong that it's overwhelming. I have to kind of stay away from it. But anyways, so yeah, we have this eucalyptus here, and it's used for protection and creates a temporary protective barrier. I guess what that would mean is, you use it for the same intention of cleansing a space and promoting protection within that space. This would help build like a temporary shield or something, either around you or your space, or both at the same time. So even when you're done with the space and you leave, you still have that floating protection around your energetic or auric self or auric body, and it just follows you around for a time, and that's great. I've known a lot of people who they just seem very fearful their entire lives, or for that portion of their lifetime that I meet them, they seem like they're nervous, they're anxious, they're stressed out, they're scared, because whether it's in their minds or it's actually happening in real life, they believe that they are being assaulted and constantly harassed by either other human beings with not so good intentions, or negative entities and such. And I've run into cases on both sides of that fence where it was in their head and they just believed that they were under attack, or they were actually under attack by someone or some things, and they needed some kind of protection along with other assistance. But so eucalyptus would be good for that purpose. At least for a brief amount of time, an individual could burn this in their home, and just when they leave, they could feel safe, at least for a little while. Even that temporary relief can do wonders for your mindset. And if we believe that how we perceive reality, we make our own reality. If you get into the mindset that you're not under attack, that there's nothing there to harm you, that you're safe and that you're protected, whether it's through your own and energetic or physical means, or you're protected by higher entities, angelic beings, spirit guides, so forth and so on, ancestors. If you're protected by your ancestors, there's numerous numbers of ways you can be protected. And I know I have a lot of guides and guardians and so forth and so on that exist in my life, and I'm very thankful for that, by the way. I don't have to rely on things like this. I also have a good feeling and belief in myself and my capabilities, which I've always been a pretty confident person, but in the past year especially, since I've really learned to work with and recognize my own powers and so forth, I've come to understand that the only things that can harm me are things that I allow to harm me, or to allow to bring me disharmony. But anyways, talking about eucalyptus. So this also is used to relieve mental exhaustion and healing emotional wounds caused by regret. It's fantastic for cleansing your ritual, magical, and altar tools. And I kind of already do that with white sage, where I've mentioned it plenty of times before. I'll use white sage to smudge my stones and crystals after I use them usually, but this is also a good alternative for that purpose as well. So if you like the smell of eucalyptus, or the smell of burning eucalyptus, then I would highly recommend this for you for that purpose. Alright, we are going to move on to mugwort, or it's also known as black sage. Yes, mugwort and black sage are the same thing. And I can definitely tell a difference between this and frankincense and myrrh. I can. But it looks like, but to me it looks very similar to blue sage, which makes sense because black sage and blue sage are very similar. But I'm trying to get close enough. You can see, yeah, you can see like these little flowery buds all within it like that. Yeah, that's what black sage and blue sage I'm going to show you in a minute as well. But they both look very similar in that appearance. In that regard, they have the little bits of flowery, grainy look all throughout it. Mugwort usually has a strong smell, whether it's like this or whether you're burning it. And I particularly like that smell, the smell of mugwort. I'd love to use it regularly, but mugwort is, I don't want to say, it's not even about the price. You know, mugwort it's just really strong. To me, it's kind of like a specialized smudging material. I use it only in specific cases, in which I will go over, you know, in a second. So I don't use it anywhere near as often. In fact, it's probably been months since I've actually used mugwort, so I'm glad I actually have some more. So, but what's unique about mugwort is that it's known as the dreamweed, and it's called that for its unique ability to stimulate dreams, and it is also associated with divination. It encourages both men and women to connect to the divine feminine, which that I didn't actually know about until recently. It helps to open our third eye to our visions and dreams. And so this has a lot to do with that, with divination, having visions and such. You know, if you're someone who keeps like a dream journal, which I do, or even if you don't, but you'd still pay attention to your dreams and try to interpret them, this would help very much with that. I've used, not this, but there's other things called dream weed or dream herb and such that you can buy online. I used to get mine through a couple places, either Amazon or a place called Banyan Botanicals. I believe they had some, and they would come in these like little pill capsules. They were clear, and it's just like, you know, taking a supplement. You take one or maybe two before you go to bed, and it would just intensify your dreams like to the max. So I used to do that frequently a few years back when I was really getting into like lucid dreaming and stuff like that. My dreams would be much more intense. They would last so much longer. Like, you know, you have a dream sense of time, and it's way different than your reality or waking world sense of time, right? Dreams usually feel like they last like that, almost instantaneous. Some feel like they're only a few minutes long, maybe a little bit longer, but dreams I've had using like dream weed or dream herb lasts what feels like hours, you know. And you have better recall, details and such. So if that's something you're interested in, then there you go. This, as far as I know, is not the kind you would take. Like, you would not ingest this. This is more for, you know, you would light it, smudge your space like right before you go to bed, and just, you know, let the smoke and the smell stimulate, you know, your mind and senses. So when you do go to sleep, then you would feel the effects of this in your dreams. If you're using it for divination purposes, then like if you're meditating with the intention of divining or having a vision or experiencing something of that nature, then just smudge it, leave it burning in your shell or dish or whatever, and just let it keep stimulating you until you have that kind of experience. But that's not the only real thing that this is used for. This is very potent against strong negative energy and entities. Okay? Earlier when I mentioned that this was kind of like more specialized, I've been in multiple situations where someone with really dense energy, I don't like to really say dark or negative too often, because words have power, and if you say words like that too often, it could eventually affect, you know, your experience around you. But dense makes sense, you know. Dense or lower forms of energy, lower vibrational energy, it's essentially the same thing, but it doesn't have such a negative connotation to it. So when I say dense, I'm usually meaning the kind of energy you just don't want to deal with or experience, you know. Nobody wants that kind of energy in their life. It sucks. So I've been in situations where I've had to deal with that with other people. Like, people will come into our space, and they, whether they know it or not, because not everyone knows that they're doing it, they'll just put out like this, just like a hose going off. It's just energy just going all over the place, and it will start to affect you eventually. Like, if you're someone who's sensitive to energy, you'll feel it more often or more quickly, and it might be more intense. If you've learned to work with energy and not control it, but like not even to manipulate it, but just to work with it. Like with me, usually when that kind of energy comes at me, I would, if I can feel it like really intensely, I just kind of just politely just push it away. And if it keeps trying to intrude or invade in my personal space, then I'll start doing more stuff. But I won't get into that in this video. So anyways, one thing I have done in the past is I will get mugwort and I will just burn that. Usually we'll wait till...
This is Anand Anugrah. Please click the link to hear Gratitude Joy 2, featuring the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, the jewel in the lotus.
Sorry about that.
Gratitude or joy, if you manifest one.
Not sure why I got an ad on an app that I'm paying not to have ads for, but anyways, moving back to the subject matter at hand. So usually once the person or entity or whatever leaves the space, you get mugwort and you just smudge the whole freaking area, just, and like that, it just gets rid of all of that. Like white sage can do the same thing, but you'll find that you're having to use more white sage than usual. It's taking longer, and you might have to do it more frequently. And even some cases, some rare cases where we've tried to do that, where maybe we ran out of mugwort or whatever, and we just tried using white sage, there's been a few rare times where no matter how much we used, the energy just was still there. Even if it was reduced, it was still there and it wasn't leaving. This will make it leave. Alright? So if you're watching this video and you're having that particular kind of concern, if it's a entity like interdimensional, interenergetic, whatever kind of title you want to give it, but it's not like an actual physical person, there's an entity that is in or around your space, this will tell it to get the F out. Alright? So whenever I pull out mugwort, it's generally for that intention. If I'm pulling this out, that means that there's some kind of thick energy or something that we just don't want there, and we intend to get rid of it. So keep that in mind. If you're having those kind of issues, this is something to go to. You can't go wrong with mugwort or black sage. When I was doing my research, I came across that this, like amongst most of these other things, these other herbs and such that we're going over, they can be used in other ways besides smudging. They can be used, as incense. Some of them can be turned into salves and poultices. and another alchemical or herbal remedies. Some of them can be turned into like teas or drinks and ingested, or even not that, this pill form, just some way where it's ingested. The reason why I bring that up is because if you are intending to use it for any purpose like that, where you ingest this, do not do that if you are a pregnant woman. Well, women are the ones who can't get pregnant. But anyways, you don't want, if you are pregnant, do not ingest this in any way, because it can and possibly, probably will promote a miscarriage. Okay? This does not do well with that particular subject matter. So if I seem like I'm kind of being stressing about it a lot, it's because I don't want you to experience that. Okay? You know, if you're pregnant and you definitely want to have the kid, then be careful what the hell you put inside your body. I mean, we should be concerned about that as humans, about everything, every day of our lives. But, you know, pregnant women especially, they have to be extra careful, you know, because their body is in a more sensitive state. So it just makes sense. All right, so I only have 2 more left, and who cares? It's 40 minutes. If you like this stuff, then you're watching a video. So enjoy it. So the next thing we're going to go over is blue sage. I'm going to pull this thing out. Look at this guy. All right. That smells really good. All right, so before I showed you with the black sage or mugwort, it has all this flowery little appearance to it, all crammed together. It's really good stuff. That's a good smell. To be honest, I haven't really worked with blue sage on its own. I've worked with blue sage in combination with other such things. Like, you'll come across combinations like white sage, blue sage, yerba Besanta. I've seen that. Blue sage mixed with red sage. You know, there's all kinds of combinations you can do. Okay, so blue sage is used during exorcism rituals to expel malevolent spirits, which is very fascinating to me. Healing and cleansing rituals, used to aid in meditation, like a few of the previous ones I mentioned before. A lot of these can be used for that, even if there's really no property per se behind it that deals with meditation. If you just like the smell of whatever you're burning, that aids in your meditation. People burn incense not because they do anything special during your meditation, but because the scent or smell stimulates you enough to where it puts you in enough relaxed enough state to receive whatever it is you're intending on receiving from your meditation. All right, this is for balance, uplifting, self-empowerment. Okay, attracts positive energies to you. So when you use this to cleanse your space, I mean, usually it's like, dense energy, go away, and then everything that's left is not dense, it's already good. But this will help to actually bring in more positive energy into your space, or whatever it is you're cleansing. It's useful in new moon manifestation ceremonies as well, and I'm glad I came across that, because as the time of this recording, a new moon will be coming up here, I want to say in about a week's time, and I'm actually going to exercise that. I'm going to use this specifically for that, because I just want to try something new. I mean, everything I already do with my new moon ceremonies works just fine, but whatever, I think it'll be fun. Alright, so that's it for the blue sage. Alright. And we are going to move on to the final item I have in our list. And I kind of saved it for last because, well, it's the most colorful. I mean, it kind of ties up there with the red sage, but red sage is just red sage. This is kind of a combination, but this is white sage wrapped with rose petals. And this one is the 7 chakra rose petals, meaning it has pretty much a rose petal that's a color of one of the each of the 7 chakra colors, like I showed you in that video, right? And that's mainly why I got don't want to put it away yet. I'll let you guys look at that for a while. So what's interesting is this is a combination thing, meaning where this is white sage and it just has these rose petals added to it, but it's not just for, you know, aesthetics or visual, you know, purposes. It's rose itself has its own qualities to it that add to the white sage as you're smudging it. Rose is a reminder that love is the answer to all. Very true. It radiates love in a wide circumference around your being. It's helpful in a meditation practice for expanding your sphere of love. You know, if that's something you want to do. And helps to maintain focus and attention on your heart chakra and love. So I mentioned earlier about doing work on your chakras, and this would be a good one if your main focus is your heart chakra. If you're wanting to promote love energy, and not just for like romantic purposes, not like, you know, I'm ready to receive and love from another person, and you decide to do this to just build up that kind of energy to attract like a partner to you. I'm not saying don't do it for that purpose. This would be a great implement for that purpose. But I'm talking about an overall general unconditional love that you have for all things in existence, right? This would be a great tool for that purpose. You expand your sphere of love. You know, we have this energetic field around us constantly. As soon as we inhabit this body, we take on, our soul pretty much is creating this energetic field around us. And it expands a lot further out than most people would think. Like usually, like if you're just standing there just being yourself, usually people will see it. It's more like a cylindrical egg shape around the entire body, but your energetic body also has a toroidal field, which that's a whole nother subject matter in itself. But the toroidal field that's centered on your body goes out, and it goes out a lot further than, you know, what your energetic body does. It can go out, I've heard, as far as 45 yards from where you're standing, not just in a circumference, but in like a spherical sense. And the reason why I tell you that now is just to give you an idea. It's like if you're intending on expanding your sphere of love, which we'll keep using that example, and you use this for that purpose, just imagine, if you can, how far out that would go. So if you're like, use this, and you get into that vibe, that state of mind, and you're like, I'm going to go out and just put that kind of love out there, you just go walk around like mall, shopping centers, farmers market, just go out in public. You know, even if it's to like a pub or a bar or whatever, a stadium, sporting events, it doesn't matter, wherever you go, just imagine that you're putting out all that energy to all these people, whether they realize it or not, whether they know it or not, on a conscious, subconscious level, or maybe they just don't realize it at all, but they'll start to feel like better. They'll feel more positive. They'll start feeling that kind of love energy themselves, and they'll be like, yeah, for some reason I'm in a really good mood all of a sudden. And it's because, you know, you're putting that intention out there, you're doing the work, and you know, you're influencing others to raise their energy and raise their vibrations to get to a higher state, you know what I mean? But anyways, enough about that. That's what the rose petals are for. Rose has always been associated with love. That's why rose has always been like a big deal during that specific holiday, Valentine's Day, or if you're dating someone, or if you're married to them, or whatever, and you always, you know, it's kind of traditional to give someone roses when you like have those kind of romantic feelings for them and so forth. So it makes a lot of sense that when you put roses in for the intention of smudging, that's the kind of properties that they promote has to deal with love. Anyways, this is my video that talks about smudging, the different kinds of smudging materials that is out there, and this is not it. This is like a lot of them, perhaps even a majority of them, but there's other stuff out there too that I just wasn't able to find or come across around this area. But I've given you a lot more than most people who are just getting into this have any idea about, and I hope that the information I've given you has helped you in some way. Maybe I addressed an issue that you're experiencing and decide that, hey, this might actually help me in some way. Whatever. If you're still here, I appreciate you taking the time to partake in this exchange with me. I have gratitude for being able to do this and being able to speak my truth to all of you. And I have gratitude for, you know, bringing people like you into my sphere of existence. Anyways, if you like this video, feel free to like it. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. And if my material resonates with you, I'm not going to stop you from subscribing. So if you feel like doing it, do it. And it'll be awesome. I love you all. Have a great day. And I'll see you in the next video.